Thanks everyone for coming down. There's a lot of people in the background, so thank you. Today I'm announcing that my footy career is over. Certainly it's been a bit sad, but I look back with really fond memories and really thankful to everyone I've come across at this footy club. It's been the most fulfilling journey of my life, and I went through a few thank yous before to the players and the staff. I feel extremely lucky to be involved with this club, and I'm not going to thank everyone here and now, but I'll do it individually at some point. But you know who you are, so thank you very much for everything.
Now what does he do? He might go all the way. He gives it a ride. It's a chance. It'll be a goal. Wants to roll through. He can. Cometh the moment. Cometh the champion.
This is a SwansCast Extra, the #1 Sydney Swans weekend preview podcast. In this week's episode, we preview the Swans Round 22 match against Melbourne on Friday night at the MCG. Melbourne swung the selection axe, while Sydney have bizarrely gone back to the Kieren Jack well. You know, when his form this season just hasn't even warranted selection. We've got the team changes, the latest stats, we preview the match ahead and give you our matchups, key points, predictions, and the weekend forecast ahead. This is your host, Justin, and with me tonight is regular co-host Joshua Marr. So, Josh, it's a bit of a mixed feelings week. We've had Nick Smith announce his retirement only just yesterday, and then we've had the most bizarre team selections today.
Strange team selection, but I don't want to talk about that now because I'll get upset. But Smooch, not unexpected, still sad.
Yeah. Look, he has been a great player for the club for more than a decade. He holds the ignominious record in the AFL of the most games played without pulling a Brownlow vote. And he took over, I think it was Corey Enright from Geelong last year. So it's a pretty amazing feat. But they were both defenders, and Joel Corey was a pretty damn good defender himself. Or Corey Enright. I can't remember which one it is. There was a Corey in it. They were both great defenders, but Nick Smith has definitely been the premier small defender of the last decade, to the point where he played on some of the best small forwards in the league and just beat them comprehensively.
Yep, he beat them comprehensively and often did it week in, week out. He is the definition of the underrated AFL football player.
Yeah.
He in the dictionary of AFL things, next to underrated, will be Nick Smith's picture.
Yeah.
It's absurd how a bloke who has had the kind of games he has had on the best small forwards in the business repeatedly for a decade can't poll a single Brownlow vote. Makes no sense at all.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, his longevity in the sport itself is absolutely stunning. He averaged more than 20 games a season for the majority of his career, which is absolutely stunning. And he was at one point going for the record of most consecutive games played. So from 2011 to 2018, he played 20 plus games every season.
Yep.
So not a big disposal getter, but what he was able to do to his opponent was, you know, at times nothing short of miraculous for a guy who wasn't particularly big and wasn't particularly quick.
No, that's right. And not being particularly quick, but still being able to, you know, manufacture some fantastic efforts on people like Eddie Betts, Cyril Rioli, Stevie J, those kind of guys, and keep them relatively quiet or shut them out of the game altogether.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with the word underrated. You just cannot. You cannot. I know it's a cliche, but it's Nick Smith.
It's
underrated, undervalued, underappreciated.
Yes.
And we need another one of him.
Just clone him up. Same with Heath Grundy. I mean, you go back, that 2012 defence was completely unheralded, underrated, severely underrated.
Absolutely.
Heath Grundy was arguably the best one-on-one player back then, and he certainly got more recognition as the years went on, to the point where last year and the year before, 27 and 2018, he was, even though he was older, losing his pace and whatnot, he was still regarded as the premier one-on-one defender in the league. He rarely got beaten.
Rarely got beaten. And his opponents often would talk about him in the media as, when posed that question, who is the hardest player you come up against? A lot of them would say Heath Grundy, or at least bring him into the conversation. I actually think Ted Richards wouldn't get rate a mention if it wasn't for the fact he played for Essendon for a while. He'd be another one of these Ted Richard who's that. But Nick Smith is most definitely Nick Smith who's that. And again, just point out just how underrated this man was.
Yeah, he was.
And I think, I think if you see or appreciate how our back six has gone for the last 2 years with him being injured and then largely unavailable, I think it really shows how much we valued a player of his calibre and size and style over the last 10 years, and just how much we miss it this year and how much we're going to miss it for a while to come yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about it, his injury right at the end of last year is almost a year. Well, it was actually just over a year ago. It was almost the same fixture. It was round 21 against the Demons at the MCG, where he tore his hamstring tendon off the bone.
Yep.
He's had 3 surgeries, numerous setbacks. His most recent one was a little bit over a month ago, actually. And when that news came out, it was like, unfortunately, he's going to be forced into retirement, because the Swans, they did say that they weren't going to offer him a new contract.
Yeah, no, that's right. Having said that, my understanding is that he's going to stay on with the club as some kind of a teaching or coaching capacity. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the club have said they want to retain him in some capacity. And I think that's absolutely great. I think they need to, because he is, in a way, he's kind of a once in a generation type player. Some of his best performances that I can remember, not only games that we won, but games that we lost. And there were some big games that we lost where he was one of the standout performers in the team.
Yep.
One that instantly jumps to mind for me is the 2017 semi-final against Geelong.
Yep.
Rampy was copping an absolute bath from Dangerfield.
Yep.
And I said at the start of the game, it's the worst matchup imaginable. Dangerfield's going to kill him. At quarter time, they put Smith on Dangerfield, and I think Dangerfield got like 3 touches after quarter time.
Yep.
A guy who's bigger, stronger, faster, didn't get near it.
No, that's right. And you're right. And I was at that game, and I was within about 15 metres of where they paid all those free kicks against Rampy in the back line, and he was not having a good start to that game. It's just a pity that Smith didn't, get a lot of help from the rest of the team. And ironically, Kieren Jack was one of the few people who performed in the midfield that night. My goodness, how far he's fallen the last couple of years.
Memories. But there's another one, the 2017 game against Adelaide, in Adelaide, where he played on Eddie Betts and Charlie Cameron.
Yep.
And he did a bloody good job then. And we're looking at Charlie Cameron as arguably the best small forward in the game at the moment, and there are commentators and pundits who are saying he's even better than Rioli. Now, granted, people saying that about Jetta, Lewis Jetta, not Leroy Jetta, but Lewis Jetta, and they were saying that about another player not that long ago. But Cyril Rioli's, he set the bar, he set an incredibly high standard. And Nick Smith is basically, I think, the only defender that had his number.
That's right.
Repeatedly.
Kind of helped that he played all his high school football on Cyril Rioli as well.
Exactly.
The game in Adelaide you're talking about in 2017, was that the one we lost by 10 points?
No, it was the one that we won by 9 points.
Right. Okay.
It was that comeback. Now it could be 20. No, it was definitely 2017. I think 2016 we lost by 10 points. I might have my years mixed up. I'm pretty sure it was 2017 because I went over there with the not quite fiance at the point, Mrs. Bloggs, and we had a weekend over there. I might actually have to confirm the dates, but I still remember him that night as being one of our more important players. And we did put the social question out there, but we'll get to the social question in a minute, Josh. But I mean, the guy was such an underrated player, and it took until 2014 after, I reckon, 4 years of just solid dominance in defence, for him to finally be recognised as what everyone was saying, he was the premier small defender.
Yep, absolutely agree. And it's funny that in a way that his reputation was probably tied up a lot, and I mean a lot, with Cyril Rioli, because he was not really recognised until the sort of the Sydney Hawthorn rivalry was really given some recognition after 2012. So that 2013, 14, 15, 16, those years in there, probably Smooch finally got the recognition he deserved from the wider competition. And I think if it wasn't for Hawthorn being the powerhouse they were for those years, and Cyril Rioli being what he was, Smooch would probably still be even less respected than what he is now.
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at Heath Grundy and Nick Smith, they have both been excluded from the All-Australian calculation and consideration for pretty much their entire career, bar a couple of instances, right? And for Nick Smith, he was lucky enough to get it in 2014.
Yep.
The AFL has tended to go on for the more flashy, flamboyant, flair-based players, those that are more attacking in pretty much every single position on the field, right? You're a fullback. If you're an attacking fullback, then you're getting in. And, I mean, that's not to sort of say that, the fella from Richmond, whose name unbelievably escapes me for the time being, Prancy, Fancy, Rancy, good old ranch sauce. I mean, for him, yeah, he's a great defender. Let's not kid ourselves. He is a great defender, but his strengths are intercepting and running with the ball. You put him one-on-one with most of the forwards and he's getting beaten most days of the week.
Yep.
Whereas Heath Grundy and Nick Smith, they were lockdown. They were more dour lockdown defenders who would stop their forwards from having any impact whatsoever. And there was one guy on Facebook who commented his favourite Nick Smith moment was watching the opposition small forward with a forlorn look on the bench, wondering where the next kick is going to come from.
That is a great comment, and you probably can't beat that, can you?
No. So, yeah, I love the guy. He's an interesting character because for some reason he was a little bit divisive. I never understood that. But I just love the way he went about it.
In what way could he be divisive? Is in the way he played his football?
I think some people kind of liked more flashy style players, and he was never a risk taker. He would always play within himself, and it was actually quite rare to see him butcher the ball or like really turn it over.
Yeah. Yep.
So he'd only get like 12, 14 disposals a game. And if he turned one or two over, it was glaring. It was obvious that he turned one or two over.
Yeah, but he was never an accumulator though. So his role or his stardom was playing that negating role on their forwards, not to rack them up. He certainly wasn't a Lloyd for us. He's not going to rack up cheap disposals and meters going from kicking it in from the square, is he? But
no, exactly. His value for me, and same with Grundy. I mean, you can both put them in the same category for this. Their value was completely measured by how little impact their opposition forwards had.
Absolutely.
And I still remember games where some of the forwards were having such a hard time, they actually rotated them through Nick Smith, and he still beat them. Yep.
And you have to remember too that a lot of backmen don't get rotated off the ground at all for a rest. They play 95% of the game time. Teddy Richards was telling us when we talked to him a few months ago. Backmen don't get taken off the field. It's disastrous for the synergy in the backline to take players off to rotate them through the bench for a rest. So they tend to play far more minutes than your midfielders or your forwards.
Yeah.
And so not only was he a stellar defender, but he was also a real workhorse. He could go for the whole game just about. He'd sit there on 95, 96, 98% game time sometimes, and he still had run at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So once again, I don't think you can underestimate just how good he was and just how much we miss a player like him now.
Yeah, exactly. I really miss watching him run out there, and he was one of the few players. And Rampy, I guess, is coming along in a big fashion on this, and Mills is coming along on this as well. But he was one of the few players who could play smaller and then well out of his, weight division. He took on some bigger players and he still beat the bigger players.
Yep.
So he didn't do it all the time, but when he had to do a job, he did a job. And there was times when he was manned up against key forwards and he was still able to bring the ball to ground. And that's all you can ask.
Yep. You couldn't ask much more than what he gave us.
No, and he was a great player and a great servant, and definitely a club favourite. A bit of a cult favourite for our fans as well. So, so all I've got to say to that is, big thank you to Nick Smith for his time with the club. He's going to be sadly and sorely missed.
Yep. Farewell to Smooch.
Farewell, and in case you're wondering why his nickname is Smooch, it's because he was trying to get onto the Clio Bachelor of the Year some time ago, like around 2008, 2009 or something, and he used to have pictures of himself in his locker, and he used to hang it. And as Ted Richards said, he was handing out the how to vote cards for the Clio Bachelor of the Year. So that's where he got that nickname. But let's move on to team selections. Before we do that, I just want to bring up the fact that Josh is remote today. So unfortunately, he's not usually in his brand new spiffy studio. He's currently our Afghan correspondent.
It's pretty wild up here in Queensland, up near the Vegas, Brisganistan. I got sick of the weather a couple of weeks ago. I got in the car and I started driving north to find the sun. And I'm pleased to say I found the sun north of Tenterfield.
Oh, brilliant, because it has been a bit nippy down in Melbourne.
It was raining and snowing slush when I left the other day. But no, it's good up here, just up here visiting some family. And I'll watch the game tomorrow. And then on Saturday, I'll make my first visit to the Gabbatoir. And hopefully watch the hashtag Lions beat the crap out of the Cats.
Yep. Speaking of tomorrow night's game, though, I don't know how much of a review we're going to do about this because it's a... Let's
call it what it is.
Six games in a row that we've lost.
Let's call it what it is. It's two badly underperforming teams trying to not be quite as bad as the other one.
Team changes straight off the bat. Kieren Jack in for Zach Jones out. I didn't even know Zach Jones had a hamstring injury. Did you?
No.
So maybe he injured it after the injury report, which seems to be, whatever these days. But Kieren Jack, come on.
Yeah, I'm sure that more than a few eyebrows have been raised at the team selection. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I would have thought that, I'm glad, actually, before we get into the Jack thing, I'm glad to see that we're going to give James Bell another week.
Yeah.
But Jack, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I would have nothing to lose and almost nothing to gain, actually, at this stage of the year for us. But I would have preferred, if they're going to change Jones out, give Stoddart another go, or bring Noel in, just something different, Jack, it's conventional, it's boring, I don't get it.
And he's been absolutely ordinary all year. And look, I love Jack. He was a great servant for us when we needed him. But he's gone 2 seasons too long.
Mm.
And last year the writing was on the wall, and it was clear that he was slowing down. And this year, I mean, look, he's averaging 9.8 disposals per game. And I was so baffled by the selection on this one, Josh. I wrote up on the blog website, if you go to swansblog.com and you look at the latest post, which are the teams, I actually had to write these 2 lines because I just couldn't help myself from the confusion and frustration of having Kieren Jack named for this game, Josh. And I wrote, the 32-year-old has been encouraged by media commentators to retire at season's end and will need to show significant improvement in the final 2 rounds to assuage those calls. Averaging a paltry 9.8 disposals from 6 games this season, well down on his career average of 20, Jack faces an uphill battle to prove that he's still worthy of a spot in the developing Sydney midfield. Now, you tell me, Josh, is he worthy of a spot?
Look, in a short answer, no. We've spoken extensively about Kieren Jack over the course of this season, and I just don't. I love the guy. Like I've loved what he's given us, but I think we're done.
Yeah.
I really think we're done. And I was surprised that given Macca's announcement and the Smith announcement, that we haven't had a Jack announcement. So,
Yeah. I honestly hope he's not going to try and go around another year. And if he does, look, he's out of contract. And this is one of those instances where, as a club, you've got to Ryan O'Keefe him.
yeah,
Let's be honest, they've got to Ryan O'Keefe him. And they needed to do it at the start of the season. I remember watching the first reserves match before he got selected for his first senior game this year. He played 2 reserves matches. His first one, he was beyond ordinary. And his second one was barely even any better. And then he came in, he had, I think, 11 or 12 disposals, went at barely over 30%, and was dropped straight away.
yeah, yep.
So I don't get it. Honestly, I don't get it, because that has been the standard the entire season. He's turned it over more than he's actually got. So it's incredible just how far off the cliff he's fallen. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of hurtful to almost see an old club champion like this, Josh, to see him falling so far.
It is, and it's been a pretty dramatic fall from grace for him. But yeah, I don't want to dwell on it too much, just because we've beaten this to death.
We have.
Year, but it is a very odd team selection for my mind.
All right, on that note, let's go back to the Nick Smith love-in. So we put out a social question, and the question was, what was your favourite Nick Smith moment? We've got ours, but we want to know yours. Josh, kick it off, mate.
Yep, sure. Barry from Facebook. He said all 211 games, one of our great players.
Yeah, I love it. We had a couple of marks from Facebook, but the first one said, that's a hard question. When isn't there a great Nick Smith moment? Mine was seeing Nick with Premiership medal holding the Premiership Cup. Yep.
Hard to beat that one.
Yep.
Andrew from Facebook. At that time, he became superstar of the AFL. Oh, wait, didn't happen. Outrageously in brackets.
Yep. Yeah. We've talked about that almost ad nauseum, that he should have been more recognised. At least he did get recognised, but I'm not sure how to pronounce this one. Quinn, I think. Quinn from Facebook. His tussles with Cyril Rioli was great to watch. Always seemed to have his measure.
Absolutely, he did. Mark Squared, the second Mark from Facebook. So many great memories. Couple of puns there. But his goal in the 2016 Grand Final, where no one else seemed to be able to convert, was my favourite.
Yeah. And one from our good old Swans blog crew, or SwansCast crew, Heather from Facebook. She has said, and she said this repeatedly to us, my young daughter announced that she wanted to marry him aged 13. She never achieved that, but did meet him at a supporter event and thought it was the best thing ever. She's now 21 and is as sad as me that Nick is retiring. So it's not quite a football thing, but you get to meet your idols. It's still a Nick Smith moment. So I thought that was
fits in
great.
there with a loving thing, though.
It does. Look, thank you everyone for responding. Appreciate that. And now it's time to go to the preview of the match. So, Josh, a bit more than a week left to go this season. The Swans are not doing too well at the moment, are they?
No, while being, I'm going to try and be diplomatic here, while being largely competitive. No, I don't have to be diplomatic.
No, they've been, let's
while
face
being
it,
largely competitive.
for a quarter a game.
For a quarter a game, and then sort of hanging in there. We've had too many absolute garbage quarters. Realistically though, we're on 6 wins at the moment. We're on 6 losses in a row at the moment as well. We could actually be on 10 or 11 wins if a couple of other games had gone. They were close enough to go either way. So I think we've got 5 games that were lost by 10 points or less.
Yeah, but we've
only been blown out off the park twice though, which is a good and a bad thing.
But just on that, we also have those 2 games that we beat North Melbourne and Essendon by 5 points. And we could very easily have lost both those.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that is true. But both of those teams were arguably better teams than us before those games. So they were games that we probably didn't deserve to win, but we did. So they were games where you just sort of find a way.
Yeah.
To channel horse. But just what I'm saying is that it's not like we're 6 wins and we've been blown off the park every single week though.
No.
Every single other week though. So we've been thereabouts for more games than I think that the win-loss, just pure win-loss would give us credit for. we're not going to end up 18th on the ladder.
No, but we are going to talk about where we want to end up on the ladder a little bit later in the show. But, I mean, the head-to-head stats between the two teams for the season, it tells, just like it did last week, it tells a very specific tale. And the big one for me, Josh, is the fact that the Swans have gone a long way away from their old bread and butter, which got them to a grand final 3 years ago and got them to 3 grand finals in a space of 5-6 seasons.
Yep.
And that is the contested possession game.
Mm-hmm.
We're ranked 16th for contested possessions and we're ranked 17th for clearances.
Yep.
3 years ago, that would have been unheard of.
Yeah, but who was in our midfield 3 years ago?
That's almost the same, except for Tom Mitchell and Dan Hanbury.
Well, I mean, there's your answer, isn't
Yeah.
it? Tom Mitchell and Dan Hanbury. So, you know, I'm a little bit more pragmatic than most of the Tom Mitchell trade. I think, given what they had at the time, as much as I didn't like it, it still made sense. But no one would have seen the fall from grace that Hanbury would take over the next couple of years. And yeah, he's had one good game at St Kilda. He's only played 3 games all year. There's every chance he comes out and his tissue paper hamstring lets go again next year. So, look, unfortunately, it's equalisation. We're finally falling towards the bottom of the pile.
Yep.
And that's perfectly fine given the history we've got. The question is now whether we're still down in this part of the pile at the end of 2021.
And it's kind of hard to say that it isn't our own doing either. Because we went out of our way to poach Franklin. Franklin did declare that he wanted to come to Sydney, and there was a long post story that came out in the middle of the year, or actually first half of the season of this year, rather, that described the trade and how it actually happened and what the steps were and how Franklin was seeing different clubs at different locations. But basically, Sydney had an inkling roughly around the grand final that he was interested, and then they actually were in full negotiations back in 2012 over like Christmas period.
Yep.
And this is long before GWS even came to the party and Hawthorn as well. So he had already basically made his mind up that he was going to go to Sydney well before any other club came along.
Yep.
Now, in saying that, I say we've kind of dug our own hole because we've given big money contracts to players. Some of them deserved it, some of them less so. But when you're giving a player about $1.5 million a season, it really restricts you on what you can do for your list management going forward. So I know you're pragmatic on the Mitchell thing. I see the pros and cons. Yes, we've got Hayward and we've got Florin out of it. And we might have been able to get one of those two players. Maybe not both, but definitely one of those two players we should have been able to get without without Mitchell, rather. But at the same time, I mean, Mitchell was only going to get better.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to get into this too much because it's old news now, and it's going to be 4 years ago next year. I think, and I know the article you're talking about that was in the Herald Scum newspaper, but there's some other stuff out there with Andrew Ireland when they were talking about, it might have been his open mic episode actually, where they're talking about the Franklin trade, and they basically said in that there was that when we got Tippett in Franklin, went to Liam Pickering and said, what are they doing, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Sydney's position was that they thought Franklin had cooled off. They didn't know he was still interested at that point in time. So maybe if the communication from Lance and Pickering and Sydney Swans was better, that we wouldn't have taken Tippett. And then the Franklin thing makes perfect sense. So, look, at the end of the day,
isn't it?
Yeah. At the end of the day, one of those players is going to get traded, either Hanbury or Mitchell, and we kept Hannah's, which, you know, given his form in 2016, was a perfectly reasonable thing to do. It just, you know, if it comes off, you look like a rock star. If you don't, you look like an idiot. And well,
we look like idiots.
We look like idiots, and yeah.
And we didn't help him. We didn't help him at all. We actually played him when he wasn't even fit. We played him when we shouldn't have played him. We literally rode him into the ground. We almost killed his career. But look, this isn't the 2016 blog. This isn't the 2018 blog. This is the 2019 preview for round 22 against Melbourne. But we should get back to the head-to-head stuff. So, as I was saying, the reason why I brought up the contested possessions was because Melbourne are ranked 5th for contested possessions. We're ranked 16th. Melbourne are also ranked 8th for clearances. We're ranked 17th. And Melbourne are ranked 5th for inside 50s, and we're ranked 16th again.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, we have really good efficiency inside forward 50, and we rank quite well on contested marks compared to Melbourne. But the thing is, like, Melbourne beat us in the key areas, despite the fact that they're sitting a couple of rungs below us on the ladder, and we're in the bottom 4. So,
Yep. They've beaten a lot of teams in key areas, and they've had a shocking year, though.
they can't kick goals. That's their biggest problem. They just
Well,
simply...
what's their percentage?
Oh, it's lower. It's 60, 70%, but they're ranked 17th for goals kicked.
Yeah.
Only
We're sitting
Suns.
15th on the ladder with it. We must have one of the highest percentages of every team that's ever sat 15th on the ladder.
Yeah.
So at least we have, in comparison to people below us, we do still have some scoring capacity. But you're right, Melbourne's midfield forward connection and the ability of their forwards to be able to actually put us through the sticks is horrendous.
Yeah, it is.
Carlton levels are horrendous.
And it doesn't get any... Look, it's not going to get any better from this week either. You just got to look over their forward line. Jake Melksham is named at full forward.
Mm.
Bailey Fritsch named at centre half forward. Jordan Lewis and Christian Petrarca, James Harms and Corey Wagner, they're also in their forward line.
Yep.
I mean, these guys aren't... they're not on anyone's wish list for a forward line.
No.
It kind of makes us... makes our cobbled together backline look even better than it really is. But they've got pace, and they can certainly hurt us. So, we can't take them easy.
No, that's right. You still got to respect, and they've got a Max Gawn in the middle as well. So you wouldn't want this to be the game where they finally figure out that they can hit a target in their forward line. Certainly, they've threatened at times this year. They've had explosive quarters where you think, oh, gee, if they string a couple more of those together, they're going to be really hard to beat today, and then they fall
Just
away
switch
like
off.
we do.
Yeah,
but they've certainly still got enough talent on the field to make an absolute mess of their opponent. They just can't get it together. But you've got to respect what they're capable of doing, not what they're actually doing at the moment.
Well, you look at their defence and you look at their midfield. That defence is pretty close to an A-grade defence, and that midfield is an A-grade midfield.
Yep.
It's just they haven't been able to put any of their dominance on the scoreboard at all. The amazing thing is they're actually lagging quite far behind on possessions in the league as well, possessions, kicks and handballs.
Yep.
They're ranked 16th in the league for kicks and 12th for handballs. And we're above them in both categories. So it's pretty interesting, really.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's right. But I think the stats too go to what Steve pointed out last week, and that is that if you get Melbourne's midfield and put a bit of physical pressure on them, they don't handle it very well at all.
No.
They like to be able to extract it and just spread it quick. If you can pressure them into not being able to do that, not give them the easy out, not enable them to extract the ball quickly, they're going to have a hard time of it. They're going to turn it over. They're going to hack kick it into their forward line. It's going to get chopped off by the opposition's defence. Unfortunately, we are not the best for putting physical pressure around the ball at the moment, and that's what makes Melbourne a dangerous team for us.
Yeah, exactly. I can't help but go back to round 4 on this one, and we were up by, 4 goals? 3-4 goals.
Yeah.
We kicked so many behinds. We should have been 7-8 goals up. The match should have been over. They were playing dreadful, dreadful football. And then Nathan Jones got 2 snaps in the pocket, 2 fluky, arsey snaps in the pocket. Then all of a sudden they kicked like 5-6 goals in a row without a behind. They hit the front and they never looked back.
Yep.
And they were playing garbage football, and we just out-garbaged them.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing that far too often this season. I just can't help but think that that might be another recurrence. They had 60-plus hit-outs last time. 60 more hit-outs. 13 to 73. It's almost unheard of. So, it's... Yeah.
It's ugly.
Yeah. Look, I'd really like us to win. As a supporter, I really like us to win, but I'm more pragmatic when I think about the results at this point of the year and what they could mean for us.
Tank.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking Abraham's M1 on this one. Get out the old snorkel kit and dump that thing in the river.
Yeah. No, I don't advocate tanking. Whatever happens is whatever's going to happen. But But, tactically, the further down the ladder you go, arguably the better it is. Though, given what Teddy Richards told us the other month about the value of high picks in the first round, I'm not really convinced that's an issue. And given the depth of this year's draft, I wouldn't be surprised if they traded on for future picks anyway. But
yeah, exactly.
Look, whatever happens is going to happen. Dropping down the ladder helps us. Also, getting a win and taking some confidence and momentum into the off-season also helps us. So I'm happy with either outcome, quite frankly.
Yep, exactly. Look, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be right back after this.
Welcome to Intermission.
One of the ordinary blokes, Nick Smith. I'm only joking. Probably one of the best blokes we've had at this footy club. Played a role for us that's absolutely invaluable. If you're talking about playing on some of the best players in the competition, one of the loneliest spots you can be on a football ground is inside defensive 50 in the goal square on some of the best talents that have ever run around the game. And he's played on those guys and I dare say giving them plenty of nightmares. And that's something that can't be underestimated as a player, and to play on the blokes to the likes of Eddie Betts and who can forget the great battles of Surioli in some of the biggest games, home and away games and finals. And as a coach, to be able to sit there and put Nick's magnet up every week for as long as we've done it against some of the best players in the competition, there wasn't even a discussion or a debate. He had that much trust in the coaching staff and the players. We just put his name up and we moved on, and that can't be underestimated. It also can't be underestimated how much mental strength Nick's had over the years to be able to do that every week, to be able to play that position every week. How strong he's been at doing that. It's been absolutely incredible. I can't think off the top of my head too many times when Nick's been beaten over his 211 games, which is quite incredible when you think of some of the talent that he's played on. We recruited him through the rookie draft and as a very good midfielder. He went back, typical Nick Smith, in a selfless style, and did the job for the team for the next 13 years. And we thank Nick for that. We also thank Nick for being one of the best blokes you could ever imagine to have through a footy club. He's just an absolute A-grade person. There wouldn't be one person that's come across Nick Smith that wouldn't say anything different. There's not too many people can say that in football, but Nick can certainly hold his head high and say that his impact on this footy club has been significant. On field, it's been just as, if not more, significant off field. He was elected to our leadership group at 23 in 2012 and has been in it ever since then, and has been a real driver of standards, challenged blokes, and just an absolute honest person. And I had an old coach who used to say to me, one of the greatest compliments you can give a person is to say they'd like to marry your daughter. Well, this bloke here is probably the best example of that. He's just that sort of bloke. Gives everything, leaves nothing out on the track, gives everything in meetings, gives everything as a person. And it's a sad day, but as Nick said, it's also a great reflection on a fantastic career for a fantastic person.
And we are back, and it's now time for the Player of the Year. So we give this one over to our fans, Josh, and they give us their 5-1, and they have spoken this week.
They have spoken indeed.
Now, unfortunately, not that many responses, which I think coincides with our 47-point loss. But could you?
The responses are noticeably less after a bad loss, aren't they? And quite frankly, I can't blame people after the way that game went.
No, some of our best responses were actually the Essendon and North Melbourne games early in the season we just talked about. Yeah. But, yeah. Do you want to fire off the 1 to 5, Josh?
Sure. 1 vote. Coming in the bottom is the plumber Tommy Papley.
Nice.
2 votes. The moustache warrior himself, Mr. Dane Rampy. Number 3 is the skipper Josh Kennedy, finally showing up in the votes again.
Yep.
Number 4, the only bloke who's playing a 4-quarter game at the moment, that is Mr. Oliver Florent. That's right, Steve. Florent, not Florent.
Florent, yeah.
And, of course, coming in at number 5 is the blonde-headed bombshell again, Mr. Isaac Heaney, for a pretty solid 100th, I would imagine.
And he must be firming for Bob Skilton, best and fairest form. Bit of favouritism there.
Yeah, given the way he's gone at the back end of the season, he had to be smoky for it for sure now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's right up there in the top 3. Dawson's up there in the top 5.
Well, Dawson would be a smoky as well. He's been very good, very consistent.
Yeah.
Very consistent and average team.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually kind of hard to pick a winner when you've only won 6 games for the year. So
Yeah.
for a lot of us younger generation fans, this is a very unusual season for us because the Swans haven't had this kind of form for about 25 years. So
It'll be all right.
We'll
get
be
there.
all right. We'll be right. We'll be right in the end. That's not the problem. It's just a lot of us aren't quite used to the fact that we're not quite winning our fair share of games. But anyway, matchups, key points, and predictions. So shout out to the older generation who lived through the bad times and they are now enjoying the better times. And now they're not so good times again. But matchups, Josh, could you please give us your matchup for the weekend ahead?
Yeah, sure, no problems. Look, I really like redheads. I tend to not like this bloke though because he's so damn good on occasion. That he's Oliver. I was going to say Oliver Florent then. Bloody hell, that's the wrong Oliver, isn't it?
Yeah, just the wrong one.
Clayton Oliver.
Yep.
Clayton Oliver. Look, he's still the key to their midfield. He's an extractor. He's really good with his hands. He can move it quick. He's also a tough little bastard. He needs to be kept quiet. I think if he gets in a position where he's getting more than sort of 5 to 7 centre clearances this week, we're in serious trouble, and he's going to need a lockdown put on him.
Yeah.
My first option that's going to be George Hewitt, but I wouldn't be surprised if that turns into Ryan Clark. I think physically Ryan Clark is probably a better matchup, body size wise, but Hewitt's a little bit more classy when he does it as well. I was going to go with Hewitt, but at some stage, I wouldn't mind either one. But I almost called him Ollie Florent again. Clayton Oliver is going to need to be kept quiet. So that's my first matchup.
Yeah, it's a good one. And when he's on fire, that whole midfield just ticks over. He is to Melbourne what Josh Kennedy was to us, the 2012 through 2016.
Yep. Yeah, and he's the one guy in their midfield who probably does stand up quite well to physical pressure as well. So it's not going to be enough just to put body on him. They're going to have to keep it off him.
Yep.
It's not going to be as simple as just putting the body work in and push him off the ball like they did with Josh Kennedy over the last couple of weeks. It's going to be a little bit more involved in that.
Yeah, exactly. Now I've gone a bit of a different one, and I've kind of looked at the team lineup, and I've gone, I don't think that's actually going to be the team lineup. I've actually gone Jordan Dawson on Christian Petrarca. I think that's going to be what the matchup's going to be. And
interesting.
I say this because when we played Melbourne in round 4, I also had a similar prediction about Petrarca. And in the end, he did a lot of damage in that game. And he is a damaging player. Sure, he's got a big fat ass and nice chunky legs. But he can take a good mark, a very, very good contested mark, and he can kick a bag of goals.
Yeah.
And he can do it in short time.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy. He's the kind of guy who will go missing, and then you pay no attention to him, and he bobs up and he kicks three on you.
Yeah, exactly. Dawson's a pretty similar size, similar physique, similar everything. They've both got about the same pace. There's no problem there. Physically, they're about as good as it gets. It's just going to be, can Dawson punish him, and can he stop him from kicking goals? So that's my matchup there.
Yep.
Your key point, please, Josh.
Oh, look, again, I'm just sticking with the Clayton Oliver thing. Hey, I got his name right. Keeping with the Clayton Oliver thing, and that's actually, I've already said it, and that is that, we're going to have to control him, especially around the centre clearances. Less than 5 centre clearances, we've got a chance with him.
Yeah,
we've got a chance to break even the midfield, and just breaking them even in the midfield clearance-wise this week will be a monumental effort because we're going to put Hayden McLean up against Max Gawn, right?
Yep, he is going to get. He is going to get absolutely nailed by Max Gawn. And if we thought, I think it was Callum Sinclair who played against him last time, or someone else, can't quite remember who it was getting it bad. Hayden McLean is going to get absolutely nailed.
Yeah.
So my key point is we just can't let Melbourne spread pace. That's what they love to do. They've been absolutely shocking in disposals this year. They were great in it last year, great in clearances and contested possession last year. But if they can somehow get on the outside and learn to use a football, we're dead in the water. 100% dead in the water because they will absolutely nail us on the run.
That's right. And they need to put pressure. And if they do get out in open space, they need to be able to get pressure on the kicker before they let loose.
Yep.
Force them to spray that shot because they're not very good. They're not very good by foot going into their forward line. In fact, they're far worse than we are.
Yeah.
And that really says something. But if they're allowed to just send it in there at will, without any pressure on the kick, they will pick targets out and they will kill us.
Well, they're ranked 18th for efficiency inside forward 50.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that says something. But the Swans are also ranked 6th for that. And they're also ranked 15th for contested marks. So, yeah. Any kind of pressure on them is good kind of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Predictions, please. Josh, give us your prediction.
Yep, and Sam, I brought Max Gawn up. I'm going to say that Max Gawn will win the hit-outs by at least 45.
Wow. Yeah, I would go and put a tenner on that one, to be honest. The only way he's not doing it is if he's injured, and he's still got 15 centimetres on McLean. I still think he'd out-tap him not even getting off the ground. No,
that's true. And Gawn will also give significantly more around the ground than a lot of the players that McLean's been coming up against as well. So unless McLean's going to come in and pull another 5 centre clearances of his own,
yeah,
16 hit-outs isn't going to do it this week. He's going to have to give us a lot around the ground.
I don't think we're going to get 16 combined. I'm not even sure we're going to get 10 combined. We had 13 last time we played them, so...
Yep.
Yeah. My prediction is Harms, Wagner and Petrarca will combine for 5 goals. And I'm thinking that's on the light side as well. I'm thinking it's going to be a lot more than that. I think we could go a 7 or 8 on that one. So.
Yeah, they'll probably combine for like 5-12 though.
About 6 out in a full.
It'd be like 5-12 and half of their whole score.
Yeah, and it'll all be in like the last quarter when they're down by 60 points. Yeah, go Swans.
Yes.
The weekend forecast now. Josh, can you give us your sure thing, please?
My sure thing, Mr. Kieren Jack will finish with less than 8 disposals.
Oh, ouch. Ouch. I hate to agree with you on that one. Mine is Brisbane Lions will finish first at the end of the round, so they'll be top of the ladder, undisputed king.
I'll tell you at about 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon.
Please do. They are playing Geelong at the Gabba, and West Coast have to travel to the MCG to play the Tigers.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that's true.
Basically, whoever wins out of the matchup at the Gabba will be top of the ladder, because I don't think there's any way West Coast can beat Richmond at the moment.
No, that's true. It's going to be a good game. It's a sellout. I've had my ticket for a couple of weeks now, so the Gabba's sold out for this weekend. Big day coming up.
Yeah, I wish I was actually going to that. Honestly, I do, because that would be a pretty amazing game to go to. Most at stake, please, Josh.
Kieren Jack.
It's very much Kieren Jack themed show, this one.
I know. Well, I mean, for obvious reasons, though, but he's got a bit at stake. He's like the little engine that could at the moment, isn't he? He's like, I think I can, I know I can. But,
yeah. Sorry, Thomas the Tank Engine, you fell over.
That's right. So, I just, he's obviously a pretty driven sort of character. If he thought he was going to go, he would have put his hand up by now. I still think there's a reasonable chance he's going to jump of his own accord, or he's going to get pushed later on this year. But if he's still on the list next year, that will be entirely because of his own sort of determination and that. But he's got a lot at stake. And if he actually wants to play on next year, he needs a big game this week.
Oh, yeah.
Like a big game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even if he wants to play next week, he needs a big game.
True.
My most at stake for this week has got to be Simon Goodwin. I mean, how can you go from like 3rd, 4th and being pretty close to getting into a grand final and having a pretty damn good chance of winning it against Collingwood, who they played pretty bloody well against throughout the season, to basically being second last and looking like a team who probably should be last on the ladder? How do you go from that in 6 months? It's unheard of.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's just like going from a grand final to not making the finals.
Oh, well, that's Hawthorn 2009, but...
Oh, it's the Bulldogs 2016
Bulldogs 2016 as well. Yeah, 2017.
2017.
But, I mean, they didn't go to second last.
No, it's true.
And this is a team that at the arse end of last season were just belting teams. And the only team they lost to, I think, was us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
They did a really good job in the finals. They won their first final. So...
Yeah, it's amazing just how far they've fallen.
Yeah, it really is absolutely stunning. But yeah, Simon Goodwin, I mean, they re-signed him for 3 years, and I reckon a really bad finish to the season and a bad start next year, and they just might cut ties less than halfway through.
Yep. Yeah, if they have a bad start of the year, he'll be in serious trouble.
Oh, he's got to be already now. But doomsday scenario, please, Josh.
That is, look, if we're going to fall further down the ladder, Carlton need to be outright above us on points because their percentage is so low.
Yeah.
Even a couple of 100-point floggies won't get our percentage down near where their percentage is.
We need to lose by about 400 points.
We'd have to lose by like 400 points, yeah. so Carlton lose. That's my doomsday scenario for the week.
Yeah. Keeping on doomsday scenarios, and I know this isn't a very Swans-like one, but my doomsday is that we win. I do have a reason for that, and it's if we are looking at the draft, we need to target the first two if we're going to really pick any kind of good quality midfielder from this year's draft. It's basically finish bottom two or bust, because the rest there is quite a big drop off from second, third through to the rest of the draft. It's not a great draft. It's a very shallow draft.
No, and then the other thing is that we've potentially got a bloke in next year's draft who's going to be in the top 10 to 15.
Yeah.
And another guy who's going to go high in the second round as well. So if they're going to trade it for futures, for points, they'd want this as high as they can get it.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have futures for this draft. It's just you just got to wonder if maybe the gamble to try and get futures for this year hasn't quite paid off.
No, that's true.
Maybe they expected more from the draft. Maybe they're watching players and they think that there's more value than the players who are currently ranked first and second. But the thing is, those two players are so far ahead of every other player. It's incredible. They are ready-made AFL players. And Josh, they're supposedly better than Sam Walsh.
Yeah, and they've made no bones about putting that out in the media as well. That those two guys at Rowell, and I can't remember who the other guy is, are far and away above everybody else in that draft. It's like those two guys daylight than everyone else.
Yeah, it's not quite Super Draft 2001-esque, where you had the Judd, Hodge, and Ablett. But it is, there is a specifically large divide between second and third.
Yep.
So it's either bottom two or bust. So that's what I'm saying. My doomsday is we win. That's my reason. It's not a great reason, but it's a reason. Yeah, it's a bit of a hard one this week, Josh. A bit of a hard cast, given everything that's happening with Nick Smith and everything else. But I do want to thank you for coming on again, especially joining us from Queensland. Yeah,
no, it's been a pleasure. I just managed to cobble it together at the last minute, and hopefully my phone hasn't got absolutely dreadful audio. But anyway, let us know how it comes out.
Absolutely. As always, guys, you can follow us on social media. You can reach out to us too. #SwansCast. You can get us on our tags, the Swans blog on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with the other page, SwansCast Podcast. We will be back on Sunday to review the match that is tomorrow night, and we'll talk about all things football, and yeah, we'll look forward to the last round of football. So until next time, go Swans.
Go Swannies.